everybody. It's Thursday. You know what that means. It's Thought Leadership Thursday, brought to you by Bakerpedia. This is a special segment that focuses on leadership, bakery trends, and so much more. I'm your host for today, Rick Olshak. I'm VP of Marketing for AB Mauri North America, pinch hitting for my buddy, Jose Lopez. All right, today we've got a great show for you. We've got Nicole Reese. She's a longtime leader in the baking industry. She's the product director for AB Mauri North America. But I tell you what, Nicole is really interesting. She has quite a background. She's an author, a writer, a baker. She is an innovator. She's been in business development, and now she leads the product side for AB Mauri North America. Hey, Nicole, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rick. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for that introduction.
We always like talking about that. But Nicole is really interesting. She's got quite a background, and I've been lucky to have her on our podcast as well, The Oven Light. But, she went to the University of Kansas. Let's talk about that real quick. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I know, I'm going deep.
You just threw me right under the bus because, of course, in the land of baking, that was the wrong school. But
I know, I didn't
to be fair, when I was young, I didn't know I was going to be in this industry. I loved everything. I still love everything. I think that's why I'm always trying to get the bigger picture. So I did get a humanities degree. I studied everything from science to humanities. And then later in life, as you know, I had a second career in food, which I backed into because I was already developing recipes out of my house for local bakeries. So, yeah.
You mentioned that kind of curiosity, and that's what I think I love about you, and a lot of people that work with you do. You're always kind of looking for what's going on. You're very aware. Curiously, we even talk about how when you go on business trips or road trips, you like to stop and check out the latest convenience store offerings. So tell me a little bit about that. What are you looking for when you're scouting out the bakery aisle?
I think road trips are a great opportunity to go places you don't normally go. Part of it's restaurants, experiencing new foods, local foods. I've lived a lot of different regions in the U.S., so I really enjoy trying to get to know what is popular and local and historic. But when you go into new venues and markets, I like to just see what's out there that I don't already know about. Sometimes I'll see that there's a launch, maybe a line extension or a flavor. I think I once hit some Hostess cupcakes in a lemon flavor that I'd never had, but when it was orange, they were amazing. It reminded me of the birthday cake my mom made me when I was 5. And I just look for anything that's new on the horizon. And part of it, as you said, is, first of all, just an enjoyment of food. My family loves food. But I like to kind of see where we're headed, where we're going. I like to put it all in context. So, yeah, I am just always ready for a new adventure.
All right. So we talk about adventures, and that's kind of how AB Mauri started, right? It was an adventure by the Fleischmann brothers. And back in 1868, they got started in yeast, and we know where it's kind of blossomed up. But, the company is definitely known more, maybe even more so than yeast nowadays. You work in some of these key areas like softening and dough conditioning. Mm-hmm. Why are those kind of aspects important to the baking industry now, just as in decades ago?
Well, yeast, of course, was our start, and globally, it's still just foundational for us. It established us as a technical company, a company with know-how. But as AB Mauri came to be, it's a baking-only group globally. And part of that meant putting together a portfolio of really great functional ingredients for bakers so they can get everything they need from us. And that could be freshness, preservation, technical ingredients like enzyme dough conditioners, mixes, bases, you name it. We're expanding more and more into new territory. So now, whereas before people might have known us just for some of the dough conditioners and the yeast products, now they hear about us because of our keto formulations and tortillas, or they've heard that we have a high protein bread formulation. So our capabilities continue to grow, really, because we're adapting to the world around us. Bakers need all the tools they can get. Companies don't have a lot of time for innovation. So we really bring a lot of capabilities with our innovation team to the table to help them.
Well, let's talk about product development, right? We just went through almost a 3-year process called the pandemic. And I think we're all trying to happy to see it in our rearview mirror. But, just going through that, it's not like product development stops, right? You've still got to keep innovating, even coming through this. People are still looking. I mean, look at the way that people even pick up food or have things delivered now that weren't really in fashion 3 years ago, but now they are. So talk about that process, Candy, a little bit about product development and your role. You're part of the team that is looking for the next thing, keeping an eye on trends, so on and so forth.
Well, what was, I think, exciting, and of course, I was lucky enough to not be in the trenches doing that hard work. A lot of companies had to put some of their launches on hold or slow things down and focus on, okay, can we even meet current demand and what's going on in the supply chain? So supply chain became the big issue during the pandemic. And what that meant was you might not be able to get a key ingredient to your formulation that you never thought wouldn't be available, right? So all of a sudden, the know-how, that's when you really see the know-how of, the bakers were looking at their own internal teams, and of course our team. How are we going to substitute? How can we make the same great quality, the same texture, the same flavor, but we're going to have to use a different ingredient? That's challenging, and it was fast moving. I don't think anyone really wants to relive it. I think the learnings from it were incredible. I think we all shown that we were super resilient as a country because, all of us consumers, we were still able to go out and get product. It wasn't as scary as those early days when there was no toilet paper on the shelves. The bread kept coming. All of the new, all of your favorite foods kept coming. So it was really, I think, actually, it shows off what we can achieve. But it was a challenge. And I'm glad we're past it. But again, all those learnings, I think we're going to see translated into the next generation of innovation. Because once you start really seeing what these ingredients are capable of and how you can move things around, you might get some new ideas or, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe I can now reduce my dependence on ascorbic acid, or maybe I don't have to even add this to this. Could I help people save costs by eliminating this totally? We ask a lot more questions with those learnings. So it was pretty incredible, I think, what happened.
All right, you said a word in there. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take this word and we're going to use it as a segue. What? Resilient. And here's how the connection is. I know you've worked on a product that's now out there. It's called Softaste Platinum, but it does some interesting things that's really unique. If I've got my facts right, you've got a little bit of softening, you've got resilience, which is that key word there.
Yes. Okay.
Even sugar reduction. So how cool is it to have a product now? You're trying to go for one thing, but you get some really cool side benefits out of it.
And we've wanted, bakers have wanted for a long time. We knew that there was a need in the market to keep bread and rolls really soft so they seem, they're fresh. We want to make sure that fresh texture is preserved on the store shelf until the consumers can get that home. But soft bread can get dented, and when it's moved around, it can get crushed a little bit, and consumers, they're going to avoid that. I don't want to buy the crushed set of rolls on the shelf when I'm going to do a barbecue at home. So we've always wanted to have really soft product, but something that was resilient and would be able to withstand that transport time. And lo and behold, finally, we have that technology. So, innovation, there's two things we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out, well, what have people not asked us for that we could deliver that could change things for the better? And then how do we help with the pain points of bakers? And resilient bakery products, especially for bread and rolls, that's really helpful. So yeah, we're excited about that. That's a completely new technology. I know that, for years, we've been trying to make things more resilient. We made some headway there, but just not on this scale. This is really the best we've ever seen.
That's cool. All right, so here's my next question. All right, this is totally unscripted, so let's see how this one goes. You're talking about the products kind of maintaining their shape on the shelf, and you're talking about if you squeeze some bread, things like that. Now, I'm going to show my age here, but I'm sure you remember the campaign, the old "Don't Squeeze the Charmin," right? Mr. Whipple, right?
Yeah.
Or Whipple, one of those guys. So when you go into the bakery aisle, this is just a personal question. Do you ever squeeze the bread, or do you ever touch it? Some people don't. I do. I like to see how the feel? I mean, I'm not like opening up the packages, Nicole, but what do you do when you're experiencing something on the shelf?
So I don't squeeze the bread per se. I just want to be clear about that because I know that I could be causing damage. If I'm considering something, I will gently pick it up from the bottom. And honestly, sometimes that'll tell me a lot about the product. You don't actually have to really do any kind of aggressive moves on bread to
Well, I'm not
understand
talking
its
like
general texture here. Okay,
huh?
well, those Charmin ads were like serious squeezing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I do look at that really. Sometimes if you see the hamburger bun pile, like if you're the last person to shop on the weekend and you see that, there are some things that have been handled a little bit too much, those might be just, they're not going to be resilient. They're probably not going to stand up to a really serious home style sandwich that's got a lot of stuff on it. So you might go and find something else. So yeah, I think texture is really important. I think we are looking at that when no one's watching us. I think we do want to make sure that the bread we're buying is fresh. But I think the bigger concern for me is not that, it's the idea that people are buying the loaf. They may not go through it really fast and they're going home and putting it in the refrigerator. And there's been a lot of education to help people stop doing that. That is the exact temperature that bread stales at. It's getting drier when it sits in your refrigerator. Yes, it won't mold. If mold is your concern, it will not mold. If you're going to make toast, great, that's wonderful. But if you're just going to eat the bread fresh for a sandwich, you're making it firmer.
I love that. It's such a crucial kind of insight that
Mm-hmm.
you're giving, but it's so basic. But I can tell you human nature before you got in the baking industry, a lot of times you're like, well, I don't want mold, so I'll just put it in the fridge and it'll keep it, fresher for longer. But it's really not the fresh keeping that we know of keeping something
Right.
soft and really great for a sandwich. Instead, you're going to something dried out. It's not a fun process at all.
No.
So thank you for that. Any other kind of tips? You said you could pick up maybe a package of 8 buns or a loaf of bread. You could tell some of the attributes just by lifting it from underneath. I mean, is there a technique or some insight we can get from you on
Oh,
that?
so it's really about the preference of the person I'm shopping for. If I'm shopping for me and I'm looking for a whole grain nut and seed, throw everything in the loaf, then when I pick up the loaf, I'm looking at the label, right? So I'm walking over. Usually there's something on the front of the pack that tells me about, how much fiber or protein, whatever's in it, that helps me understand how much whole grains there. But if I just pick up the bread and feel it, that weight tells me, am I going to like that? Because I like heavy, dense breads. So I want stuff that has some substance to that. If I'm shopping for my daughter and I'm picking up a loaf of bread, it's not quite the case. She might want something that's going to feel a little bit lighter, a little softer, a little fluffier. So that for me is a telltale sign, especially when you run up to something that you think is artisan in the grocery store. There are two types of artisan, I'm going to say, bread. Some of them are very lightweight. So they may have a chewier texture. They may have no sugar. They may have a crispy crust, but they're lighter. So they're good for one type of application, make sandwiches. And some are like really, really dense and heavy. So yeah, I pick them up. I can tell a lot about what I'm going to buy just by doing that.
I think it's pretty interesting. All right, so let's take a quick turn and look maybe a crystal ball looking ahead. What do you see out there trend wise you like, or are there opportunities you're like bakers really need to keep an eye on this, that, or the other? What is that?
I mean, when I think about the current trends that are out there, I think we've learned a lot about the demand for alternative diet bakery products like keto. So we've gotten really good at that. And I think that that is something that the bakers should be proud of, that there are so many great products out there, because now that we understand how to use these ingredients, we can take them to other places. I think reducing sugars is going to come next, not because the government is going to legislate it like it has in other countries, but because consumers want to actually have some control of how much sugar they're getting in the diet. And they want to know that something that they eat in quantity doesn't have very much. And there's just more and more technology available to do that. Fiber, nutrition, none of these things are going to go away. It's almost like we are really creating better bakery products that have all of these attributes. There's a lot more ferments. What I mean is like dried sourdoughs, dried cultures being used in bakery products. And that brings a complex flavor that's really enjoyable. So it may not be an all out sourdough, but you get this really kind of old world or interesting flavor profile from some of those. I think all of that you're going to see more and more in the future because we enjoy our bakery products. And I think that that's not going to stop.
Well, maybe tag on to that, just a couple questions. So kind of touching back on the pandemic, really saw a renaissance of sourdough again, but it also saw a little bit of a renaissance in one of our key products, Fleischmann's yeast. People were baking at home. It was crazy. It was up 600% at one point. I mean, that's got to excite you, right?
Well, it does, especially because in my early days, I worked in food publishing. I was a test kitchen director and I was a food editor. And our goal was to inspire people to go home and make food, whether it was completely from scratch or whether it was starting from convenience food at the store, it doesn't matter. I think during the pandemic, people took a little bit more control back, experimented, adjusted how they were living. We were all trying to figure out what is the best lifestyle for us at that moment. So we were trying new things, and it might be nostalgic things that we had in our past, but that's exciting. And I think whenever we as consumers start branching out and going back to some of our old favorites in the past, it is kind of cool. Yeah.
All right. So before we finish up, AB Mauri is known within the industry for having technical service and really focused on what the individual needs are of the industrial bakers and the craft bakers and the distributors they work with. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how important is it to have personalized solutions rather than just something, off the shelf that covers a lot of things?
So what I would say is, in general, we might have a basic technology, and it could be, it could be replacing emulsifiers or enhancing gluten. It could be, helping to reduce the sugars, whatever it is. That's great. It'll work everywhere, but we may have to tailor because, as you know, process and ingredients are what define the finished product first. And if we don't adapt to that, then we're not going to be successful. So a lot of bakeries have more than one location. And in those locations, they have different equipment and they may have different flour or ingredients coming into different parts of the regions they work in, which means they're all trying to produce the same product out of the oven. And that's hard. So when we go in with a technical product like that, it's really our team that assesses that and can help tweak it. And if we need to, make sure it's going to work for that company. And that's really essential because at the end of the day, our goal is to keep a formula as simple as possible and get that quality and help bakers, save money and deliver the best possible product to their consumers.
Awesome. Nicole, thanks so much. We appreciate your passion for your baking, your expertise, your longtime history inside the industry is awesome. So thanks for the advice. For those that are listening in, thank you for joining us on Thought Leadership Thursday. It's been fun having you aboard. If you want to know more about AB Mauri North America, you can hop on the website, www.abmna.com, or check out the link in the description below. And for now, hey, happy Thursday, everybody, and happy baking.
Thanks. Bye.